really hope that after today, our teachers feel kind of reinvigorated to go back out into the classroom and put some of the stuff that we've worked so hard on to work. And hopefully they see other people's student work and they get other ideas to use, and they go back with kind of a new sense of creativity that they can put these things to work and that it will work, and to keep working at it. So.
Today I hope to be able to see some of the student work that our teachers from the Professional Development Institute are bringing back with them, and I'm really interested to hear possible ideas about implementation of the curriculum in other classrooms, and listening and in helping the POSOH team facilitate the meeting today.
My expectations for today are to be able to provide support for educators around the area who are interested in implementing POSOH in their classrooms.
At this workshop, what I would like to learn is how to make more connections between the natural world and Indigenous cultures, and the things that you can get straight out of a textbook. It really helps the kids to just feel better about themselves and helps build relationships, and then they take responsibility for their own learning.
In this workshop, I'm looking forward to understanding more about the interconnectedness between science practices and we as people and we as communities. I think that's really what's hitting home with the kids, and I also think that that is what's going to give us empowerment as people.
I think anytime that you attend a workshop, your goals as a teacher is to get new ideas, things that you can bring back to the classroom, and be able to teach kids maybe from a different perspective, or change your current practices for the better.
I'd like to learn more about how students learn based on their prior experiences. They grow up differently, they have different ways of learning things, and how can I reach them in different ways?
It's important for me to learn a different mode to deliver teaching science away from the traditional open your book, very regimented format, versus an open discovery that gives every individual student to self-discover their own learning path.
I want to learn how to engage the students more efficiently, and of course gain knowledge from other teachers and ideas and practices.
So let's really try and check each other that we're talking about that intersection, the relationship between the choices we made in our practice and what we saw in the learning for the students.
So the students, it wasn't of course through the Menominee course, but they at least had the opportunity, so I told them.
And if you don't have the end result, your conclusion is to try to figure out why you didn't get the textbook answer. So then I'm glad at least if you have a try and group.
Specifically because my student teacher really has the reins right now. And, I want him to work with materials he's familiar with and comfortable.
To be able to reach students like A who feel that they should follow the kind of scientific protocol they may be used to, having that being part of the assignment.
It would be interesting to compare those two representations of like how you're distilling information and what that means for your way of knowing too, as like a comparison, because those are like the products of your way of knowing.
I like the idea of thinking about showing them the how a science article is laid out, and then maybe having, because part of our discussion is about different ways of knowing, and so they could have related their perspective taking approach to understanding the experiment to an article.
And with this rubric, this could kind of have a kind of organized format of like introducing, the organisms, where it then move and transition, in a couple sentences of that, and a couple sentences of where the organism lives, what it eats, life cycle, and structure it that way. Then you can kind of break out and almost have a living ecosystem story that you can go from one person to the next and share out.
If you were like pull this into an ecology class in high school, because it would adapt very well there too. They could put the comment in, here is where this is. They could just insert the comment.
Yes.
And then when you go to, as an instructor, read the story, you see the peer reviewers' comments along with, and you can add yours to it as well.
Right.
And you're not printing anything off, you're saving some trees, and it's all right there.
The example that I found to be most exhilarating to me was that she took on a grad student, and we feel like that's a really good summation of what we'd like you to think about when we're talking about TEK versus Western science. So we would like you to just read the discussion.
You know, you said you had a textbook and this, you just followed this certain protocol. Well, I think we're trying to bridge the new standards with old practices, and that's how we get the whole debate, and students don't know how to debate. And then, whoa, sometimes I get this huge reaction that's like, I wasn't expecting that, and it's like, okay, now what am I going to do with this?
I think all of us, we see kids who basically many times in our classroom repeat stuff, whether it's politics or whatever, that's not necessarily what they necessarily believe because they really don't know anything. It's just what they hear, because I think many of them follow where their parents have pushed them into.
So when we're talking about the dinosaurs or evolution, we're talking about theories that have stood the test of time in the scientific community, and so helping students navigate that in the scientific community this holds. In your church you might have a different faith-based way of explaining that, but in our science classroom we want you to be prepared.
You have to have that conversation.
Every group had mentioned this, and I let the first group of kids take it. They wanted to build a sustainable community garden, especially because we have a little bit of an Indigenous community, so low-cost food is fantastic.
And I think one of the most important things that we do as teachers is we make little marks, perforate those barriers between the known, whether it's what we know or whether it's what we know we don't know. For my students, this was huge.
What I learned today from this workshop about my practice is the idea that I need to incorporate more academic language, as I know that I use it, but I don't know that I use it intentionally to the point that students all have that same academic language.
Validates things that I've been thinking, and it just opened my mind up to bringing in other material. I loved it. I'm planning on coming back.
It's a refreshment of what I can get from use with POSOH and what I can bring to my students. It's like a refresher of, this does work, or it's a new way to look at it.
It's really important to be open-minded to everybody's cultures and to embrace the differences and not necessarily make note of them all the time, but to know that it's okay to have multiple views on single subjects or many subjects, but that how we learn from each other is all different, and that's okay.
It was great to meet all of the people here so I can understand the barriers as well as the benefits to implementing the POSOH curriculum. So the barriers that are there, we've come up with some strategies to be able to anticipate them and be able to overcome them in classrooms where most of the students aren't aware of the new cultures.
What I got out of this today was lots of ideas from other teachers that I can use in my classroom.
When I come here, there's a piece of me that grows, and I just want to share that with students. There's a piece of my mind that opens, and more so I would say there's probably a piece of my heart that opens, and I think sometimes we separate our heart from our mind, but it really makes the whole person. And that's what I want to bring to my kids.